Okay, I'd like to open up the County Ways and Means meeting tonight. Members that are present, Legislator Nightingale, Bob Shea, Ben Vitale, and Tom Winslow. I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes of April 15th.
I'll move the April 15th minutes. Second.
Okay, any questions or all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, there are no appointments on the committee agenda tonight. We do have agendas in the front of the room. There was one update, PW2 was added, but unfortunately, it's not on this particular copy that you have. But we might as well get started and we can go to the treasurer and ask him if he'd like to update any information he has on his report. Or if we have any questions for him.
I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Any questions for the treasurer? All right. Look, great, thank you. Grace?
I don't have a ton to add to my report. The only thing I just wanted to mention was that we did attend the fiscal school this past week. And they, talked about some interesting things. With OSC got up and they talked about the fact that there are a lot of counties currently going through fiscal strains. And one of the things that they mentioned was, when doing the budget, I know Lynn and I have talked about sales tax and how it's leveling off. How about a breath? Because I ran here, I was really sorry.
Take your time.
But it's just coming from another point of view, coming from the state, they too said when looking at this year's budget or 26's budget, don't assume there's going to be increases in sales tax because it's leveling off across the state. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate that again, as we're, going to be coming into 26's budget year. So those were a couple of things I just wanted to take back from that.
And the sales tax flattening up is the pressures the other counties are feeling, is that basically?
That's across the state as well. I mean, it's leveling off. Again, we talked about the fact that during COVID, you saw the spike in sales tax or the increases. That's kind of gone now. We're where we're going to be. I mean, yes, you might see some increases, just based on, normal economy things or decreases. But at this point, you're not going to see any large spikes. So, don't budget for some big increase and assume that that's going to cover,
Expenses.
our expenses, right?
Okay, yep.
Did they talk about, we've also noticed our rising costs, particularly in the personnel area, health insurance area.
Health insurance was a big thing across the board. And that's why they said a lot of counties are facing a lot of fiscal strains due to rising healthcare, salaries increasing, cost of living, increases and so forth. So yeah, they're seeing it, across the state. So, we're not alone. So.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Grace? Okay. Jenny?
I don't have anything to add to my report. I did want to point out that the final day of redemption for the foreclosure process that the treasurer's doing is May 21st. So I'm sure as soon as that date passes, my office is going to start getting phone calls for people looking to do repurchases, and they may contact you as well. If they do, please have them reach out to me directly.
Is that what you mean by the redemptions, the foreclosures are going
The
out?
foreclosures, right? The final day for people to make a payment.
Yep.
To get out of that process is May 21st. So we'll be filing papers with the court in the beginning of June. And then people would have the opportunity to repurchase. I'll be giving the deadline of August 1st for people to file that paperwork with me.
Okay. You do have one resolution that
I do.
you're going to put forward, authorize the county treasurer to pay mortgage tax.
Correct.
Go, yep.
Yep. So our office, really, we get a report from the state that tells us what is supposed to be allocated to each of the towns. But then we do a calculation to allocate to the villages as well, based on a formula that's within law. So, and that's based on the assessed values.
Did you tell me that at one point that we didn't have to do the villages, or is I'm thinking of something else? But towns and villages are all eligible for this?
This, I believe that it does.
Okay,
need to be.
all right.
I believe you might be thinking of, re-levying unpaid village taxes.
Okay, yes, all right. So this is a general routine resolution you do
Correct.
every year?
It's done twice a year.
Yep.
It's done in May and then again in November.
All right. Are there any questions about WM1?
I'll move WM1.
Okay,
I can go second.
okay, now, is there any questions? Not, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Diane is online, yep. Good
Hi,
afternoon, Diane.
afternoon.
Yep,
I don't have anything new to add to my report, so if anyone has any questions.
go ahead, Heidi.
I just wondered, did we get a good amount of candidates for superintendent of buildings and grounds? How is that process moving along?
We actually did get a good number. We reached out to 5 candidates that the committee had reviewed, and we have 3 interviews set up, 2 for tomorrow and 1 on Friday. So
Great, okay. Thank you.
And I could ask the sheriff or you, it does look like the custody positions, there is some interest in filling those vacant positions, or at least moving forward with the physical fitness exams.
yes, we actually had a good turnout last night at the open house, and we do have several different candidates from that used to work for the state prison that are interested in working for the county in addition to other people. So yes, we have a good number of people that will be going through the physical fitness part of the hiring process on the 31st. So yeah,
All right, thanks. That's good news. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Anyone have questions for Diane? In the group? Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amanda?
I have a couple things in addition to my report. So I've been helping with the buildings and grounds. Resolutions, contracts, work, everything like that. So I'm gonna give you a copy of the pest control services resolution that was added late.
Thank you.
There's also another resolution that's gonna come through for the legislature meeting that I'm giving you a copy of, just at the same time. Maybe. There's 2 there, but. So for the pest control services, it's something that we already have in place for most of our buildings. It's with the same vendor. I identified a discount that we weren't using. So it's for the same service, it's just cheaper. So in order to accept that discount, we do have to have updated service agreements. So that's what the resolution is for.
Thank you.
And that's why it can't wait, because it'll offset obviously some of your budget costs. Mark, do you have a copy?
Sure. Yeah, Hector,
Yeah,
thank you very much.
that's for the pest, and this is the other ones.
Thank you. Sorry.
So it did not go through the Public Works Committee. I did get permission, so I'm asking that we can get that through today so that we can have the chair sign updated service agreements so that we can update the costs on the buildings. Anybody have any questions on that?
Did you say you added buildings that weren't currently under contract and then you got the ones currently under contract at a reduced rate? Is that?
Yes, yep, yeah, so identified a discount that hadn't been applied to our account previously. A lot of the buildings were on like an à la carte, like per service, not an actual agreement. We just pay them every single time they come. So that costs more to do that. And then we did have buildings like our public safety building did have a service agreement, and a couple of our other buildings had service agreements in place already. So those rates are reduced. And I worked with the sheriff and the team over there to make sure that they were okay with sticking with this vendor for right now, because they did have some issues in the past when there was a closure or there was a remodel of the building next to them. And so that has been addressed. The staffing has been addressed. So I worked with all of the buildings to do this. So, yeah, it's a discount to the current service rates. And it'll be better for all the buildings that don't have service agreements where we were just paying for them to come in and when we had an infestation. So it's going to avoid those things. Any questions?
It's just a comment, given the size of some of these buildings,
Mhm.
I think the monthly amount's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty big
The
discount.
courthouse,
Yeah,
the
yep.
historic post office, these are a lot of buildings.
Yeah, yep. And it is based off of the services that I had him work with Paul from Buildings and Grounds to go through those buildings and identify what they should have on the outside and the inside and stuff to address the concerns. And then some more specific ones for some of the clientele or things that happen in the other buildings. And then they did add some additional traps to like mental health. There wasn't any exterior ones. So we kind of like addressed some of those things as well. So, but it was a pretty significant discount and the sheriff's has got $900 left in the budget by sticking with it. So that was a good one there, just that.
For this during the Public Works agenda,
Yeah.
correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Did anybody else have any questions on that? The other resolution that's in front of you will go through the full legislature next week. I have been doing various bid openings. One of my bid, and I do have a bid open right now for employee assistance program for our human resources department. So if anyone's asking, we do have that bid that's open right now. And then we did, since we don't have anyone that's really specialized or qualified to do any kind of project management related to the county office building, I was requested to put bids out. So we did an environmental project manager and then just a general project manager. We built scopes around kind of what's going around at the county office building for several projects that would be identified for those locations for you guys to make decisions. So that's what that resolution is for. The bid process, so we had pre-interview conferences for both of them. It was advertised on our website. It was advertised in the Citizen. It was also advertised in the Lake Shore newspaper as well. I do a news flash for any subscribers for the county website. So anybody who's a subscriber gets the notice that there's bids out there. So that was done for this as well. There was question deadline. It was out for over a month. So we did get a couple of temporary agencies that gave us resumes for people, but we're not looking to hire someone. Really, it's more to consult. It adds that third party to what we've already been doing with the Colliers, who we have like a blanket contract with from the previous bid there, and then Sessler and Lozier, who had been selected in the emergent need. So
They're all under the Collier umbrella though, aren't they? Sessler and Lozier are all under the.
No, different
no,
contract.
they're different
No, but
contracts. Yeah.
isn't Collier the parent kind of company?
At this point, it's Lozier is working under Colliers
Yep.
and Sessler's a separate arrangement.
Okay, not under Collier's, just Lozier.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Jonathan's here to speak on that. That's just, does anybody have any questions on the bidding side of it or anything?
This would be at an hourly rate of $135 per hour. And there's various levels of individuals who would be brought in to consult.
So there's different positions. So depending on what project you give them, and Jonathan can identify the projects, but they would give you the breakdown of, it's the same rates that are in that bid. And I believe Jonathan sent out copies of it, but I do have some in my office too, if anybody wants to look at them, but it depends on who's involved. So if you have to bring in somebody for abatement, there's a specific person for that. So that 135 an hour is for the senior project manager. So that's that rate for that. The other positions within there are broken down in various rates, 120 an hour for this or 90 an hour for this. pending what it is, whether it's architectural, abatement, they have environmental and a ton of other stuff. And so,
We have architectural engineering on staff, that's also an
Yeah.
FY20 range.
and it did go through full criteria evaluation. They have extensive experience with counties, with towns, with villages, with cities. I had requested in proposals to clearly identify all of the past experiences so that they could be evaluated. We did the same thing for both the environmental and the project manager. We broke that out because we knew that the environmental would come in at a more expensive rate because of all the extra certifications and everything, but it's not that these project manager companies don't have environmental in there. But if you're looking specific for, a mass amount of environmental, that rate per hour is substantially more. Yeah, we did have a committee going through the selection process, reviewing the bids that came in, and that was, campus is the one that stood out the most for everything that came in.
Do you have a list of the bids that came in?
I have, so a lot of them were temp agencies, and we did have people that backed out because of what they identified as the public, the newspaper reports and things around it. And so they did back out after the pre-conference meeting for the project. But I can give you a list of everyone that submitted and anybody who had been sent. We sent it out to over 2,000 different providers. It also goes on our BidNet platform, so it goes across the entire United States. So I can get you the listing of who it was sent to, anybody who requested the document list, and anybody who submitted bids.
This was the lowest bid as well, the one that we accepted, correct? Or-
Yeah, the other ones really, so the environmental was much more expensive for the, one rate was $250 an hour, I believe. And then the other ones were from temp services. So we would have to hire them on, and it's just you wouldn't want to do that for this type of project. So they were not really qualified under that, so.
They're gonna help us with the feasibility, the cost estimates, and provide us with guidance as far as potentially the current structure, and then any potential, if we decide to keep it or not, and the potential of the potential build out, and moving in the direction of potentially if we're building a live hybrid model, potentially rehab. Then our work with our experts, and our competitors.
They've also agreed to come and present on their company at the legislature meeting to give some background and field some questions.
When is that?
So when that happens this month?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
don't.
that'll be next week.
I want you guys to feel comfortable with everything. I don't want it to be a surprise. You're getting it in layers. If you hadn't seen it, I sent you, there's a packet here as well that introduces their company. Everybody should have gotten it. You may have to see that time.
There were a couple, like, to add to your question, there was a couple local people really who didn't want anything to do with it. So we thought we'd get some bids on that, but they declined.
I only asked because CNS engineers called me.
Yeah.
Did they put in a bid?
I think they had registered for the pre-bid conference and then didn't show up. But no, they did not submit a bid. And I mean, this literally goes to, there's all these different avenues that they can get it. And I did have, like Jill Fudo, who contacted me after the fact, and she's like, I don't know how I missed this. And once a bid's closed, a bid's closed. So there's no exception. So I did explain to her how she could get future bids, but yeah. Anything else on that?
Nope.
Anything else on my report or anything like questions?
So we have things starting up, 63 Genesee, we've got security as of yesterday. Clean tech is in there.
Yeah.
And then I just wondered, there was a note about COB repairs. What have they been? And then the roof, what roof is that? Is that how it's?
So I don't know if it's the Hardenberg roof had a leak. We have a warranty on that. I'm working with Buildings and Grounds. There's a warranty on that. So the vendor that put that roof in is coming Friday to figure out where the leak is coming from so that it can be repaired.
Okay.
So I'm helping with that. And then the county office building roof, there were some things in order to get that certified. The architect has to confirm that it was built to specifications and stuff. So there was a couple of electrical things with the exhaust fans on the roof that needed a little more work, as well as the lightning protection. So working with Buildings and Grounds to ensure that they can get up there and finalize those things so that we can get the warranty on the actual county office building roof. And as for the repairs, it's in the basement. There's in order to turn the chiller on, so we have to heat and cool that building, obviously, even though people aren't in it. We don't need to cool it to an extent that there are staff in it, but you have to maintain the chiller in that building. And so there's preventative maintenance that has to be done. There's water testing that has to be done. And there was a leak that was identified and needs to be repaired. So there are 3 different vendors that have to come in. So scheduling the access with that. That's happening next week. We have 3 different vendors coming in. I scheduled those 3 different days and based off of who needs to be the first one to access. So P&J will be coming in to repair a pipe that afternoon. Feedwater will be coming in, and then Dakin is a 2-day process. So that's to make sure that our chiller is operational for as we go into 90-degree weather. Yeah.
Is that the emergency resolution?
Yeah.
Today?
Mhm.
And it's from all that work to be done in 3 days, correct?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Mhm. I confirmed the hours and everything with all the vendors, how long it would take, 2 hours, 4 hours for this one, 2 hours for this one, 8 hours for this one, and coordinated that based on the schedule. So to make sure it was as cost effective for the county as possible as well.
So this question isn't really for Amanda, but it pops in my head because of the county office building. There are lights that are on in the building at night. And is there a way for us to explain this to the public? Because we're getting lots of comments about they haven't been in there for a year and they can't shut the lights off at night.
Can I address?
Is there a way, how can I explain that to my constituents?
So lights have been turned off on floor 1. Floor 3. 4,
5, I think. Yeah.
right. 2 and 6, the panels are not accessible at this time because when Sessler went in to do the retrieval of court ordered items, they built the contamination chamber over the light panel. It's plywood butted up. And there are also lights that are still on several of those floors. So much 1 has a couple lights. I know there's a couple lights in some other areas. We're not able to pop the breakers per se. We actually went to light panels and shut them down.
Okay.
There's some lights that are not associated with the panel, which are on for emergency purposes that don't shut off from the panels. So the floors, in case they're occupied, obviously there's still minimal lighting on. We have not determined how to turn that off yet because systems aren't really marked that like, here's the emergency lights, and we don't feel comfortable at this time flipping breakers. Not knowing what they belong to. But right now, yes, to answer the questions, all the panel lights on 1, 3, 4, and 5 have been turned off. 5 and 2 and 6 just are not at this time accessible. And as soon as they are, we will ensure that those are turned off too, but it may be a while. I need to speak to Sessler regarding it. It goes back in the building since they didn't shoot.
Have you heard that kind of feedback from the public?
I have as well.
I'm just wondering if-
right now that I was there when the lights were turned off.
Yeah.
I was disappointed it wasn't darker.
So, is there a way, should we consider a press release, just a quick little, to let the public know this isn't oversight on our part and we're purposely wasting their money? Because that's what the taxpayers are paying for those lights for a building we can't get into.
We can figure out a way to address that.
There is, I
Especially if
can
there's-
tell you that there is a massive decline in the usage for utilities at the county office building, because I'm currently doing a bid to secure prices in the dip of the market right now to help protect us long-term for utilities going into winter. And one of the big questions with the providers was, when is that usage going back up? Because they saw a significant drop.
Tom has an app on his phone, it shows us the usage for the different areas, and, I mean, when it came back, it was immediately noticeable, even on the app. Yeah. So. In addition to the not being used with the job.
Anything else for me?
I have a quick question about the COB vendors. I'm not privy to the emergency resolution, but are there provisions for needing PPE or something to get in the building?
Yeah, I don't have all those details. He can tell you. I believe there is PPE.
The guidelines set by Sessler, guidelines set by Lozier. And that were set up, and we have it already state that the vendors can visit as an authorized visitor. They must wear a tie back and a respirator, must sign the book and be escorted by Sessler, which is why they're on site. There also has to be a decontamination shower available for them to use upon exit of the area. So that's part of what the cost is ensuring, and that has to be on site for their recommendation. And there will be the assessor, will be the supervisor person on scene with the show compliance system.
And I think I spoke with Tom. This isn't just the heating and cooling that the vendors need. The vendors need to come in and access a lot of things in that building.
Well, currently, the emergency resolution just resolved around the heating and cooling, and then obviously the 911 center has backup equipment in there as well that must maintain.
Yep.
So there's the trigger alarms on the system,
And that's the Motorola piece
which is what's triggering part of this as well. As far as a long-term solution, I'm waiting for a quote from Sessler to do some cleaning out, put a negative pressure space in and make that space available so we can actually go through the Sessler portion of it. Long-term, that's going to be probably a few weeks out. I haven't gotten the quote for work yet.
because routine maintenance has to happen
It has to,
for
well, not
everything?
just for IT, but for everything that building has.
Right.
Critical infrastructure within that basement that must be maintained.
The data center you're talking about and the 911 equipment?
And the water systems, the cooling, the chillers, the whole thing. And it's a lot of some of that stuff's in the basement, the electrical stuff, and then obviously the rooftop access. Rooftop access isn't an issue right now because the stairwell is clean. The rooftop's accessible through the stairwell. So that's
And this
not-
maintenance can't get done without the supervision of these vendors?
Correct. At this time, the areas, because the basement area has been decontaminated, or to gain access, they must follow the guidelines set forth by our vendor with the PPE, the respirator, and the book being signed, and Sessler as the supervisor, and the wash clean out. Read that inside.
No, you did not. Excuse me.
I have a question for Jonathan. So I see in this resolution, interpretation of the cause and origin report. Do we have the report?
I have a draft of the report, and there is the scope of work as far as with the cost of potential cost price was not in the scope of work. Current draft report.
When is that going to be made? Not that.
I would love to update the legislature on the draft report as soon as we can see. Individually, however you want to make it work. Be happy to discuss it.
So I just think that at some point we'll have to make that public. Whatever's in the report.
And at some point, we can discuss that, Mr. Westfall, and potentially right now the draft, so the drafts aren't technically active.
Right, so I guess I'm just saying, since it was documented in this resolution, it's important to talk about it, to flag it.
I think it's important to discuss it.
We're trying to set a meeting up with Colliers and Lozier to go over the draft report so that we completely understand it, understand what the recommendations are. Then it'll be finalized.
Thank you.
And whether it was definitive or it isn't, this is all part of what's going to be in the documents.
We're working to have, as Mr. Westfall stated, we're looking to have a meeting next week.
Okay.
Get some of this discussed. Yeah, I don't know if you're about to talk about it.
Yep.
Right. That's it. Fred?
Yes.
I know you
working very hard to get this meeting set up. But I'd like to make a point and let them know that this is very crucial that we get this done ASAP. For God's sakes, we've been waiting a year.
I'll convey that, yes. Yep. Understood.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, anybody else? Did I didn't miss anyone? Okay. We can go on to Ways and Means two. A resolution to implement hiring restrictions at the county. As you see, I had initially started this after the last meeting. It has taken many forms. Initially, it was going to be potentially every position would be off payroll for at least 60 days before you even go to the personnel committee for consideration to have your position filled. And then I had met with some staff at the county. I've met with a number of you. I've sent the resolutions, I think, to you and Ben. And it had kind of taken the turn to what's in front of you tonight, which really is a restriction against hiring positions effective June 1st through August 31st, unless that position is listed here in one of these exclusions. And again, the significance of this really is to try to preserve essential services, but reduce the spending in our 2025 budget by keeping vacancies open. We have the ability, August 31st, to extend this resolution, to let it sunset, to add different exemptions to this resolution, and as we move into budget time. So at this point, I have looked at the restriction to apply to all full-time, part-time, temporary positions, whether vacant or anticipated to be vacant. And the restrictions for these positions are listed here. County attorneys, social services attorneys, staffing, caseworkers, staff social workers, custody officers at the jail, some seasonal workers, and 911 emergency dispatchers. As I said, if there's support for this resolution, this will take effect June 1st and go through August 31st. And at that point in time, we can decide to extend it, change it, let it sunset. One of the legislators on my way in today said, you know, the what if something critical was to happen. And of course, like anything else, this is a resolution. It could be rescinded, it could be amended. We could do whatever we get majority support for, but I'm bringing this forward tonight for your consideration. And I think there's also going to be, if I'm not mistaken, Jonathan, some appointments being made with some of the larger departments in June to take a look at their current 25 budget and to see if there's any way that they could be, not spending all of what's in the 25 budget without significantly hurting their operations, all to try to mitigate the use of the fund balance and put us in a better position when we go into 2026.
Oh, motion for discussion.
Yep.
I'll second.
A couple of things. So what do you feel that after 90 days, what are we assessing for?
All we're doing in 90 days is putting a hold on filling of vacancies that are coming. I've had a couple departments ask if there were permissions to fill prior to this. They're still in force and they're going to be filled. But when vacancies come forward, we're asking the vacancy to be held through August 31st. We've had some positions come to the Personnel Committee last month. One was a public health educator position that we did not support putting on the agenda. There was a aging services specialist that came forward that we did not recommend putting on the agenda up until we could get an idea of whether this was going to move forward or not. So there have been department requests that the Personnel Committee has asked to hold on.
I would like to make an amendment, propose an amendment to the exceptions in the second to the last resolve. We've got a motion on the table, so we can discuss that.
That's correct.
Okay. Under staff social workers, I'd like to add the care managers. They, like the social workers are, they're revenue generating through the Medicaid process.
Okay. Okay, so if I'm understanding you correctly, we put staff social workers as an exemption because we're operating the mental health clinic and they are the individuals who see clients and bill and
Care-
generate revenue. Care
And
managers are similar.
Exactly the same. So I
Okay.
just would ask for an amendment to add that to the staff social worker bullet.
Do we have to move this and then try to amend it or?
It's been moved at this
Okay.
point, so there's a first for the amendment. We're just waiting to see if there's a second
Okay,
post amendment.
so you're asking under staff social worker to add care managers in mental health?
Yeah.
All right, I'll second that. Now, the resolution is amended.
No discussion on the amendment
Okay.
first.
Is there any discussion on adding the care manager to the staff social worker as they are both in the clinic operation and generating revenue for the clinic?
If I can have a question here.
Sure.
When you say they bring revenue into the office, are we just paying the person with the revenue that's generating the position? What do we do with the money that's generated? That's my question, I guess.
This is part of the third-party revenue that's in the clinic. So when the clinic is a service provider and they bill third-party insurances and if it's eligible for state aid, they bill and the revenue comes back to offset the operation of the clinic.
And it's,
Not individual to the person, but it's revenue for the clinic operation.
so what's billed is, I mean, the individual bills for the hours that they work or for the case that they're working on. Now, when that comes back, when they bill, are they getting 100% reimbursement or is it 50% reimbursement? What's being reimbursed?
Is Lauren on the phone? Lauren?
I'm on, yes. So the care manager program altogether is covered by revenue that's billed. Also, we also get money, state aid funding that covers the cost of that entire program. So they generate revenue that covers the cost of the entire care manager program and sometimes make money that then is put, it goes back into our overall budget in the operation of the clinic and the care management program.
So Lauren, it's specific to a home visit or patient contact, and there's a billing rate that you have established. Is that how it works?
Yeah, I mean, they have to have a certain amount of visits per month with each client based on the needs of the client. So some require more than others, but based on that, we get reimbursed through Department of Health as well as OMH, Office of Mental Health, because we are the legacy provider. So we do have non-Medicaid cases that we get funding from the state for, and we're the only one in the county that does that.
Yep.
If I could ask, I think what Legislator Strong was asking was, is it the position that's reimbursed or the work? And would they get the reimbursement without the position? And do they have the staff to do the work without adding another position? I think that's a reason.
Yeah, Lauren, you told me that you had, what, 3 care managers or 2?
Two.
2. And so if you were to lose 1 care manager, you would have 1 left and you would not be able to serve the number of individuals that you have. Is that kind of fair to say?
Yes, correct. And those individuals are required, any people that are on an AOT, so anything that goes through court that's mandated for people to have mental health services, they see our in-house care managers for that. And we have quite a few people on AOTs at the moment.
And when those individuals see those clients, it's that generates an hourly rate or a 15-minute rate billing?
Yeah, I mean, the whole program itself makes money towards our budget. you know, there's other costs, like we get service dollars, we get other things that we apply to the program. But yes, their salaries are completely covered and plus some for the program itself. So the salaries are covered by revenue that we get, as well as, you know, they're required to do the work as far as the visits go. So it's complicated because funding comes from two different sources.
But if you had one care manager versus two care managers, you would not be able to see the same number, make the same number of visits.
Correct.
Okay.
So if I may.
Yep.
So we have a staff social worker and then we have the case manager,
Care.
care manager. What's the difference between the two positions?
A staff social worker has a master's in social work. Care manager is a bachelor level position. They're not licensed. And a staff social worker is seeing someone and doing like clinical therapy counseling. A care manager is actually doing home visits and working on, you know, different needs, whether that's housing, whether that's benefits, whether that's, you know, helping them, you know, learn how to kind of live and function on their own. It's more like life skills and things that the care manager helps with, making sure they have a primary care doctor and they're getting to those appointments, those types of things the care manager does.
So the staff social worker couldn't do any of that work?
Correct.
It wouldn't be worth.
If I could, yeah, a
Yeah.
staff social worker is a medical practitioner. So they're licensed for very specific medical field and mental health, and it would indeed be inappropriate to ask them to do that work.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I know you said you do have other revenue besides Medicaid, but the care manager is kind of the case manager. And a lot of times, these are Medicaid managed care clients who have a lot of social determinants of health. They
That
have
is
housing
correct.
issues, they have all sorts of things that this care manager will work with them on so that potentially the Medicaid managed care organization spends less money overall on this particular client.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So by not making this amendment, we'd be jeopardizing a revenue stream that's coming into the county.
Mental health
Yeah.
clinic, yes.
Can I ask a question? I'm not on the committee. I think Heidi was getting at this question initially. So what are you measuring? Like, what is after 90 days, what kind of outcomes are you looking for? Like, do you know of possible areas where you have like planned retirements that we know we're going to not fill? Is it just going to be holding people off? And then we have to open the floodgates. You know, like, what do we want to measure and where are we going? Like, and I think as a group, we need to think about what kind of services are we going to continue to provide? And then what services, if we're faced with a scenario of A, B, C, D, what services will we potentially be losing? So
To me, if we have a subset of positions in various departments that are vacant going into the budget season, those are positions that I think could be looked at for reductions within the county without impacting bodies in positions through layoffs. That's one thing. So I think it's a way of kind of building some capacity to see if we were going to, and it won't work in all cases, but if we were going to downsize our workforce, there would be vacancies we could consider at the budget time that potentially would not be filled going into 2026. I know, I think it was Brian Soper who had told me, please don't do a hiring freeze. But, sorry, Brian. But eventually, you had told me that you have three positions, three MEOs that you didn't ask to fill. Did you tell me?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
tried.
No, but I thought you said I'm going to leave them open because we're not snow plowing, and those are those individuals I need when we start snow plowing. So if this was
But your
to,
timing of this hiring freeze is gonna screw that whole system up, because what's gonna happen is I'm not gonna be able to get the guys that through the summer to hire them if we're on hiring freeze.
Well, and what I was going to say is there could be consideration by this body at the end of August to put a certain number of MEOs on this exception list because you're coming into snow season.
My complaint about it will be is what happens to the MEOs that apply for the next 3 months? If those are potentially good candidates and then come August, they got jobs somewhere else, we don't get to hire
Yeah, I
them.
understand,
And that's
but
a risk we're gonna run.
yep.
And without the MEOs, we don't plow roads.
Ed?
Yep.
I guess, are you gonna, Fred, do we have to vote on this amendment before I make possible?
Does well, we could, or you could make the comment, but you're right, we still have to vote on
Vote on
the,
this and then I'll bring up my amendment to this resolution.
and we should have the vote on unless there's discussion, or should be a vote on.
Although honestly, Mark, wouldn't your amendment have to come at the ledge meeting?
Because he's
It's
not.
not
part of
on
the
this committee.
That's correct.
Yes.
I forgot about that, Mark. Plus you can get somebody on the committee to make the amendment for you, but.
I doubt they know what I have in my brain.
Guarantee that.
All right, so we have an amendment to add the care manager to the staff social worker. And I'd like to get a vote on this resolution as amended.
Get a vote on the amendment first.
Have to vote on the amendment first.
All right, I seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the amendment passes. Is there further discussion on the resolution as amended, or are you prepared to vote on the resolution as amended?
I'll make a motion for the resolution as amended.
All in favor? Aye.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Favor? Aye.
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 That was fun. Okay. Now we can go on to Health and Human Services.
Okay. First of all, thank you for going through the meeting last week while I was at the CCC graduation. Health and Human Services had 5 resolutions, all passed through committee. I'm actually going to offer them up individually. I don't see places where things can be bundled. So the first resolution is authorizing us to enter into a 2-year agreement, a continuation agreement in our participation with the rabies program. Brings in about just over $26,000.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Social Services, HH2 is amending the budget to reflect $268,000 or a little more than that for the rental supplement program. This allows for individuals who are close to eviction, individuals and families who are close to eviction or at the eviction state to apply for supplemental funds, keep them in their homes and out of homelessness.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. HH3 authorizes the Commissioner of Social Services to fill a caseworker vacancy in the child welfare unit.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. HH4 authorizes the Chair and the Commissioner of Social Services to renew our contract with Rescue Mission for homeless family and transitional housing. And this is a $103,000 contract. We have worked with annually for many years.
Okay, I'll move it again.
Wait a second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
And finally, HH5 is establishing a contract so that we can, in general, with independent licensed psychologists who will do our 730 competency evaluations. There's a cost per hour and it is $350 to $400 per evaluation. And that might move on to, also, participate in court proceedings as needed.
Yeah.
It's an hourly rate.
Yeah, I'll move it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yep. Government ops? Oh, that's me. Authorize the chairman of the legislature and the chief information officer to enter into an agreement with the city of Auburn for information technology managed services.
Second.
Any questions about that? We talked about it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Planning?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Award the contract for grant funded consultant services for the Village of Moravia, small project grant fund awarded through New York Forward.
I'll move that.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Public Works?
Right, Public Works has two, I guess. PW1 went through committee. For PW1 for the 3-year agreement with Onondaga County plowing and snow and ice.
I'll move PW1.
Gal second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And PW2 was discussed earlier. Like that for a PW2 also.
I'll move that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, judicial, public safety?
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Judicial Public Safety has a total of 6 resolutions. 5 went through committee and 6 was added here to Ways and Means. First off, I guess JP1 and JP2, I would like to bundle those. They're both within the 911 center. Hirings for their authorizing the legislature to create and fill one emergency services help position in the 911 center. That is JP1. And JP2, authorization to fill one full-time vacant supervising emergency services dispatcher position.
I'll move JP1 and 2.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, offer up JP3. JP3 is authorizing the chairman of the Cayuga County Legislature and Director of Finance to make budget adjustments and E911 budget for domestic violence training. Again, passing here, this would require a 2/3 vote at the full legislature due to domestic violence training that's coming up, and the 911 training budget is going to be exhausted without this to be able to cover this training.
Okay, I'll move that.
Gal second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
JP4, amending resolution number 130-25 to authorize the district attorney to fill either a vacant assistant district attorney position or a vacant law associate position at the district attorney's office.
Move JP4.
Gal second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And JP5, to authorize the chair of the county legislature and the sheriff of the Cayuga County to enter into an agreement with Global Tech Link Incorporated, doing business as Viapath for the management, operation, and maintenance of the incarcerated individual telephone system and tablets at the Cayuga County Jail.
Gal, move it?
I'll second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye. And JP6, which was added here tonight, authorizing the purchase and installation of Motorola software on 2 laptops used as part of Cayuga County's 911 backup emergency plan. Graciously had on loan a couple of laptops from neighboring counties. Those are due and have or will be going back due to the needs of the counties that are letting us borrow them. And these 2 laptops would be to ensure that we at least have a sort of a backup center capability.
I'll move it. Oh,
I'll second. I do have a question. The money was somehow transferred from another equipment line. Is that correct, Lynn?
Yeah. Of equipment
I don't know what that was.
to radio.
I don't know what equipment, I don't know the 6.0.
As I highlighted.
Lynn?
Yeah, we had some funds in the social services equipment line that has not been needed for the 63 Genesee Street move.
Oh, so you
that's
looked
where it's
over the
getting moved
budget.
from.
You looked over the budgets and found this as a way to get this done without having to go to contingency or fund balance?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, all in favor?
All right,
Aye.
and that is it for GPS.
All right, and there are a number of resolutions that are on that you will be hopefully familiar with when we get to the ledge meeting next week. 1, 2, 3, 4, and now 5. The project manager is going to be added as ledge 5. Okay, those will all be for everyone's attention and review and vote at our ledge meeting. Anything else? Okay, okay, motion to adjourn? Okay, great.
Oh, my goodness.